First of all, I'm honored and humbled to be sitting on stage with you today. I've been extremely fortunate throughout my career to have partnered with Pepsi on the vendor side of the business for about 8 years now, with multiple companies. And it's been a chance to work alongside some of the brightest minds on the media side of the business, on the marketing side of the business. So seeing what Pepsi has done coming into Las Vegas this weekend has just been phenomenal. Really humbled to be here and unpack a lot of what you just talked about today. One of my main questions is the word phygital, right? I love it. Firework, the company I work for, we're all about bringing the physical shopping experience into the digital store, right? And that comes with blending a physical experience with the online experience. So when you talk about Pepsi's approach to phygital, can you talk about it specific to this weekend?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things, and again, phygital is such a weird word to say, and it's with PH, just in case it's physical, digital, right? But the concept is pretty simple, right? And when you get to, it's interesting. So I went to the Sphere a couple of, was it yesterday? I went to the Sphere yesterday, and we saw the postcards from Earth thing. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's an interesting thing. So you're physically there. If you've seen anyone see the U2 concert, and everybody is holding up their phones and watching the experience through their phones because they want to capture it and share it and remember it and all of that kind of stuff. And that is one of the insights. And concerts is the same way. The Super Bowl is the same way. These parties, again, last night we were at one of the parties, everyone's filming it, and it's like, dude's right in front of you on stage, like, just enjoy it, But there's a real insight there of, because all of you have your phones with you, because we want to connect more, how the digital and physical worlds connect is going to be more and more important, and making sure you have a seamless brand experience across both of those things, both from how your brand looks and feels, how it behaves, where it shows up, how it interacts, is something. And so again, as a brand that is very tactile, if it's a can of Pepsi, there's liquid, it's not a, we're not like Google or a digital or a virtual brand or whatever. We need to think about, well, how do we want to show up in those spaces? And so we built this visual identity to kind of be a bit living and breathing and dynamic, so that as the world evolves and we get into more things, even into more virtual worlds and things like that in the future, that we've built the right foundation to connect in those points.
That's amazing. As I think about Pepsi as a company, one of the things that I always think about is the deep connection that you've built with your extremely loyal base. And I think part of that is the physical experience here with the people like to be here, right? But also that experience that you're letting the crowd tap into it at home. So especially with like the Get Wild campaign, can you tell me a little bit about how fans at home can get wild and still be part of this?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think one is they can clearly follow us on our social accounts and Cabe and Zach and all that kind of stuff. But there's also, which I didn't talk about, we have a really fun promotion we're running where we're actually bringing Vegas to Kansas City and to San Francisco and in Vegas, where people can actually show how they're getting wild, and then we'll deliver a Pepsi Wild Cherry robe and a 2-liter Wild Cherry and some playing cards and some kind of how you can bring kind of the bigness and grandness of being a night in your Vegas hotel room, kind of in your home a little bit, of how you can get wild. And so again, we're just trying to have a lot of fun ways with it and just really make sure that people can again, engage with our brand on a deeper level. That's what it's really about with this consumer specifically, who, as we said, gets wild a little bit differently than other generations.
That's amazing, and I think we all can agree here. Everything is better with Pepsi, right? So, one of the things that I look at is Pepsi had been at the forefront of the halftime show for years, like really bringing delight to all the consumers at home. Todd, can you unpack the decision a little bit about Guy Fieri partnership this year and doing better with Pepsi with Guy Fieri? I love the concept.
Yeah, so to be clear, Guy Fieri is not our halftime show performer. I wouldn't compare them as apples to apples, but what I would say is listen, as we moved on from the halftime show, there was a number of reasons why we wanted to kind of create new brand experiences. There's a lot of other things we could do moving forward. I think as we think about the role of Pepsi in food, right, and Pepsi goes so well with food, food is better with Pepsi. That's a campaign to get better with Pepsi, something you're going to be seeing a lot more from us in the future as we really try and assert the connection point that we have with food and a lot of these things. And we thought Guy Fieri was so interesting. He just fits the brand so well. He's so unapologetic about how he enjoys food. You go to, diners, drive-ins, and dives, and this idea of just kind of the bigness and the over-the-topness that having him doing a tailgate at the Super Bowl with Pepsi, we just felt it felt right just as a great way to do it. It's free for consumers to participate and come, and it's just a really it's a fun event, and we think it'll be a fun way to kind of really drive this idea of situational salience for the brand, which is important for us around food, but do it in a very fun Pepsi way around the Super Bowl.
Amazing. And similar question to the Get Wild with Raw Cherry campaign. How are fans at home able to enjoy Guy Fieri and that type of activation? I know that there's the TikTok component and streaming from there, but I'd love to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, obviously there's stuff, and we'll be posting stuff, and like I said, Cabe will be posting some stuff on his social and all that, but we're also, the brand's going to be, putting out, again, as you think of our brand from just a product experience standpoint, most people who are not like you in this room in Las Vegas, who are watching the Super Bowl from their couches, Pepsi is an endemic part of that game day experience, right? You're making 7-layer dip, and you're ordering pizzas and wings, and hopefully you're drinking some Pepsi along with that, right? And so we're going to be doing a lot with consumers on game day around recipes and game day and a lot of that kind of stuff to really help people kind of up their game on that front as well.
I absolutely love the at-home recipe concepts. I feel like that's what really takes this off the field and into your living room. Can you talk about the decision of choosing Guy Fieri and how you think about the creator economy and how Pepsi is going ahead and choosing these partners?
Yeah, and it's in Guy's one of them, Cabe, Zach King, all of them. It's listen, the creator economy. A lot of people talk about it, and influencers and creators and who are these people. At the end of the day, it's tricky because you have to almost like toss the keys to your brand to them without getting too granular in a lot of the stuff versus if you're buying a spot and you want talent or whatever. The interesting thing as you think about the creator economy is these creators they're the talent, they're the production company, they're the creative, and they're the media outlet, all at the same time, right? And so if you're just hiring, Kaveh Lame to act in a commercial, like sure he has some celebrity, but you're not if you're just having him produce the spot, so you want to kind of let them go and do what they do best. And that's one of the things you want to give some light guardrails. And so obviously we said to Zach King, please use the sphere, here's the animation, here's some stuff, but I don't know how to do any magic tricks. I can't do any of that, sleight of hand, but what would you do for it? How would you want it? And so as you think about partnering with creators, I wouldn't everybody goes right to the reach or the big name or the this or the that or a cool influencer. And now I got Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian or somebody, that kind of thing. And it's really be thoughtful around how your brand will show up. Because a lot of those things too, it's they still feel like some forced integrations where it's it's like those forced reads in a podcast where they read over the sponsor and then people skip it and then they get to the next section. It's you don't want that. You want something that feels endemic and authentic to your brand, but it's told in a way by somebody who's authentic and endemic to tell your story, and you're giving them the great responsibility of, here's the keys to the brand for a 2-minute, 30-second, whatever it is, film that you're going to do. Let me know how it goes, and let's figure out how to make sure it's good. So I think that's a really key thing around selecting creators.
You hit on a key word there, authenticity. Right? I think for any brand, being authentic and building that connection with your audience is what it's all about. One of the things that Firework have been working on is NIL programs with college athletes because they're the authentic influencers on the ground in a lot of local communities, right? So when I think about authenticity for Pepsi, can you tell us a little bit about your approach to making sure that each interaction with your consumer base is authentic?
Yeah, no, I think, listen, authenticity is one of the most critical things for brands nowadays. I think it starts from, you can't be authentic if you don't know who you are, right? And so brands today need to have a healthy self-awareness of know what you stand for, which also means know what you don't stand for. Know what you want to play in, which means you're not going to play in these spaces. And so by behaving in a consistent way, with a consistent voice, consistent set of brand values, establishes a set of authenticity and guardrails around your brand and how you connect with consumers of how they come to expect you to behave, how they will see you and not. And so I think that's the main thing, where you see brands get called out for going too far or stretching is when they are not consistent to a set of ideals, where they have a bit of an identity crisis of what they stand for or who they are. And those are things that I think are just the most critical is around, it really gets back to your core brand DNA of knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you want to be.
When we think about looking back to move forward, right, in terms of how you're bringing the next era of Pepsi to the market.
Yeah.
I love the choice of Shaq. I grew up watching Shaq, and those old commercials really hit home. Can you tell us a little bit about what the future is going to bring in terms of looking back and moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and while that 125 moment was a physical look back to look forward, where we brought back our Britney Spears spot. I mean, we have such a rich heritage that it's, we have a treasure trove of ideas to build upon, and you'll see some little bits and pieces throughout some of the things, but it really is about reimagining them moving forward. So it's not just kind of bringing back our greatest hits and just rolling it, I think it's really going to be how we evolve moving forward with a lot of the different things. And we talk about the next generation, but we don't forget who we are and where we came from. That's one of the benefits of being a legacy brand is hard, right? It's great in the sense that you have a legacy and you stand for something. People know your brand. We are fortunate on the Pepsi business to have amazing household penetration, amazing awareness. We don't have the problems that a lot of other brands have. The flip side of that is there's an expectation of, well, Pepsi's a brand that's about this, and if you veer off that course, or if you do something wrong, like you're pissing somebody off who's been drinking your brand for 30 years, right? And so you need to figure out a way, because we have such a broad audience, to be consistent to your brand, which are those behaviors I talked about, of this challenger mindset and ethos, and this kind of pop and culture kind of approach to how we approach our brand. And then back to that authenticity of knowing that the lanes of our brand voice and where we stand, who we're targeting, and being consistent and doing it in a modern marketing sort of way, as like I said, as our team's doing. So I think that's important.
The 125-year mark is definitely a pivotal moment in Pepsi moving forward. When we think about the change in branding colors and the zero sugar, I would just love to unpack a little bit about the marketing around zero sugar, especially with health trends, things going on today.
Yeah, no, it's it's one of those things where zero sugar, just and not to get too geeky on the cola category, but it's a huge growth segment. Obviously, consumer trends. You think about health and wellness, what people are looking for, and all that. It's a huge, huge growth category. And what was interesting is, in our previous logo and thing, we'd have blue can and black can, and when we'd advertise Pepsi Zero Sugar, it would be great for zero sugar, but it wouldn't halo back to the mothership, and it had tougher from an ROI standpoint in the return and all that. It was like we would be splitting hairs. We'd be talking to this and we'd be talking to that. Having this master brand approach now, where it's all Pepsi, but it's led by zero sugar, it allows us to also nudge consumers even more so to get there sooner and quicker. And really, we just reformulated our product last year at the Super Bowl. We rolled out our new formulation of Pepsi Zero Sugar, and it's a phenomenal product. And it's a great way for us to really badge and lead with that across all our brand communications. So every Pepsi ad you see will be led by Pepsi Zero Sugar moving forward.
Whenever there's a pivotal moment like this, it's amazing. It's great to have an amazing media team that Pepsi does, right? And you made one specific statement that I'd love to unpack a little bit more.
Sure.
And that was make content, not an ad. And
Yeah.
I feel that's so extremely important in today's market through the lens of authenticity. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit how you're going to be moving forward in that.
Yeah, well, listen, I think if you think of today's consumer landscape, consumers are bombarded, all of you are bombarded with messages, right? You get push messages on your phone constantly, you're doing other things, and when you think about advertising, right, I know when I'm watching TV and an ad comes on, I pick up my phone. And I know when I'm looking at YouTube and I see an ad, I hit skip. And I know when I'm, listening to a podcast and an ad comes on, I skip it. And it's just, an email comes in from a direct marketer, I delete it. So ads, who wants to do an ad? We're smarter than that. We're past a lot of that. And at the end of the day, there's a role for that at the end of the day. There's clearly, some top-of-mind awareness and some general housekeeping and things that we can do to really continue to drive our brand message. But for real deeper engagement, this idea, just because your ad was delivered to somebody's eyes doesn't mean it was really delivered, to the person, and that they engaged with it. And so the idea is if you build real content that people can engage with, pass along, talk about, relates to something that they're doing or interested in, then you're getting somewhere. And it's almost this flipping it on its head. It's like this idea of creating opt-in content is the way I talk about it, where it's like, building something and consumers will find you. Like that Shack ad, we ran some of it on TV, but most of it was really people passing along on social media, talking about it, leaning into it, and connecting with it in different ways. And so there are moments where you can use the full media mix to help promote it, but at the end of the day, brands need to value consumers' time because there's so many things that consumers can do with it that you need to make sure it's something that they would want to engage with and want to connect with on a deeper level.
I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of how that content is shared, because that Shaq piece was actually sent to me by my right hand at Firework, and she sent it over because she actually, her first job out of college was working on a media team that supported Pepsi. And the nostalgia of that spot was just amazing, and as you said, sometimes you see it, but does it hit here? And that whole look back and moving forward, like that Shaq spot really hit here for a lot of people. One of the things I was thinking about as I was watching the videos you put up was the sweepstakes component of the diners and some of the things that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about how like the sweepstakes and like those types of activations fit into your marketing?
Yeah, well, sweepstakes, I mean, obviously consumers, we do a lot of that stuff with win a trip to the Super Bowl, win a trip, what was amazing about the diner was, there was a wait list of 18,000 people who wanted to spend money to spend 3 hours with our brand. Just think about that, that's crazy. I mean, it's not crazy because like I geek out on that on other brands, right? Like I'll go to a sneaker drop or the Apple store, or think of brands where you engage, where you geek out on certain things. And like for a brand like Pepsi, we've never really unpacked that properly, where there's a lot of people who love this brand and what the brand stands for and the heritage and want to try all our crazy innovations and try Pepsi Cola Chup and maple syrup Pepsi and all this kind of stuff. And it's a wonderful experience when you see that. And going to the diner, we saw all these people wearing Pepsi shirts and telling stories about their interaction with the brand. And that's at the end of the day, these experiences that you can really create for the people to really deepen that brand love and connection, especially a brand that's been around for 125 years, I talk about this thing with our team, I call it the tattoo test of like, if your brand really hits home with someone, at some point someone tattoo it on their body. And I do not have a Pepsi tattoo, just for the record, but but it's not because I don't believe Pepsi's worthy of that, right? It's this idea of how you can unpack that emotional and deeper connection through these type of immersive experiences. And then over time, I mean, you see a lot of brands like the M&M store, or the Starbucks Roastery, if anyone has been to there. There's all these experiences where you can go beyond the product itself and still tell your brand story in interesting ways that I think is just a really fun. You look at what we've done in Las Vegas here with the Sphere with Pepsi, and Doritos just took over the Luxor, and telling different brand stories and experiences, through different canvases, I think is just a really fun way to kind of engage with consumers moving forward.
I know we wanted to leave a few minutes for questions from the audience.
Sure.
So do we want to start taking a few questions?
Sure.
Hey Todd, it's Stephen Wolf Pereira from WD's Room. He's doing just phenomenal work, and obviously, Pepsi's so huge throughout the Spanish-speaking world. But specifically, I want to ask you about Gen Z and just knowing how important Gen Z is to your overarching, kind of strategy, and that 30% are Latino, but the majority of Gen Z is actually multicultural. We'd just love to get some of your insights on how are you really connecting in culture.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and well, I didn't cover it here. Our Hispanic marketing is a major push for Pepsi, and I know you had kind of talked about, we talked about the 200%er as well, right? You talked about your 100% American, 100% Latino, right? And at the end of the day, that is very true. What's interesting about that is you think about Hispanic marketing, right? A lot of people quickly say like, oh, well, do you have a Spanish language version of your ad, or are you doing something on, one of these very focused channels? But the reality is, the NFL over-indexes with Hispanic viewership, right? And so what that means is, though, you're not going to run a Spanish language ad or something on an NFL broadcast. You need to make sure that the insights that you're tapping in for your general market campaigns really resonate with both audiences very well, with the general pop, and have a little bit of an extra nuance to that Hispanic audience to do it authentically, because that's really the right way to engage these consumers as they're flipping between both types of mediums as they're going through it. And so we do a lot of stuff on Pepsi with food. We do Mejor con Pepsi is our Better with Pepsi, and how we lean into Hispanic culture and food culture, and there's a whole bunch of stuff we're doing in that space, but it's a really critical growth opportunity for us for sure.
Hi. So you mentioned a little bit about influencer marketing on one hand and eyeballs, right? And
yeah.
The hearts, the capturing of hearts. how do you determine a marketing mix between influencer and broad, awareness plays, and then, all the way down to in real life events like the diner and things? Like, how do you balance your budgets appropriately, and what KPIs kind of drive a decision to push money in one way or the other?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's no one way to answer that. But what I would say is the general approach that well, let me take 10 steps back. I think marketers today significantly undervalue the role of earned media and organic social media. It's free, right, if you do it right. But it requires a creative idea or something interesting for people to care about it and talk about it. But I talk about this idea of, if a tree fell in the woods, did anybody hear it? I talk about, we want to do marketing that happened. And I've seen too many recap decks from agencies that's like, we took over Times Square, we did this, and I'm like, never heard of it. Didn't happen. You don't do the stuff that happens. You're getting alerts on your phones, you're getting texts from your friends, you're seeing it in the news, right? That's how you know you're hitting with culture. And so we do a blend of stuff from our paid, right? And our paid media, a lot of our paid media is, call it the, a lot of our more hardworking stuff. So it will be like, we call it taste and refresh. We'll run 15-second spots, and it's top of mind awareness for our category. That's really important. Just reminding people we exist. It's a spontaneous kind of category. But then we have these kind of cultural beats, these things we call culture bombs on our team, and these things that just are designed to drive earned media discussion, social media discussion, and everything. And so it's a mix between how we kind of bring those things together. And then sometimes when we have the right idea, we then put paid behind that earned idea to kind of amplify it from the ground up and make it into even more of a moment, And so it's how you play with those things together. There's no one formula or one approach. And obviously you got to do what's best for your business. Obviously, some businesses that are more lower funnel and direct to sales, it's a different pressure versus, different budgets and all that kind of stuff. But I would say it's really important to leverage the full marketing mix across all of it and not just look with blinders at the paid world, but really consider what's happening more broadly in earned and social and all those things. And we kind of drive the media around our creative ideas rather than insert creative ideas into pre-existing slots in media like plug and play. And that's, I think, the other thing is bringing your media partners earlier in the creative process, I think is a huge idea.
Kind of lighthearted, nothing too cerebral. Do you have any funny anecdotes about being a blue logo historically sponsored up against red-oriented teams and some of the challenges your agency partners or creatives have had to come across negotiating deals, implementing deals, etc.?
Yeah, well, we we don't love red, but we do love the 49ers, who are a partner of ours, and so we also love the Chiefs too. But listen, from a visual standpoint, well, it's interesting. Like the visual identity, our previous visual identity was actually not the easiest thing to navigate with, and when you look at kind of the colors and how we could do it, so that's what actually is really interesting about this pulse that we talked about, because like things rippling out, is that we can tailor them and customize them. Even as we've gone through, creating a logo and visual system is hard, but then when you think of the scale and scope of Pepsi and the type of partners, we're partnering with the University of Washington, which is purple, and how do you activate it? There's the New York Jets, which are green, and how do you bring these things together? It's more of a design problem to solve, and we have a very talented design team that's figured out a lot of ways where we can integrate authentically, still keep our brand identity clear and focused, but still bring that partner stuff to life.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Suryansh from essentiallysports.com. It was wonderful to see those ads. Quite an entertaining morning here. I am curious, taking a call like having Shaq in your brand as an ad, where you're playing the nostalgia play as well, I see. A lot of brands targeting the youth audience want to get Steph Curry or fresh players, etc. Taking a strong call, playing on the nostalgia. And I don't think you are even playing nostalgia on that ad per se. So how do you do that? That's a super unusual call.
Yeah, no, listen, it's, we can be with and we do a range of different things across the brand. So sometimes we'll partner with the Next and the Who's. To me, it comes down to, it's not about who you're partnering with, it's about what you're doing, what your story you want to tell, and how you want to do it. Shaq, he's not playing, he's not the hot new thing or whatever, but he still is very relevant in culture. He's on TV every week with TNT, he's a huge personality, he's large in life, he's very well known, he's very well liked and regarded. And there is a bit of nostalgia with him of a lot of even younger people today might not know about some of his past work with Pepsi, or same thing like Skilo was very happy to get our phone call, right? Like he's not the most relevant guy today either, right? But at the same time, it's how you do it and how you bring it about in a more modern way that creates kind of this thread that can connect the dots a little bit better. So it's not just about looking backwards; it's about kind of bringing it forward and creating something new.
As we wrap up here, there's one last thing. Any predictions for Sunday?
Predictions. I predict that Taylor Swift will make it in time for the game. That's what I predict. And the world will rejoice at that exact thing. There will be a tracker as she walks through the tunnel. She gets into, she takes her first sip of a Pepsi in her suite. I think it'll be a fun game. I think the Super Bowl is always just a phenomenal spectacle. The halftime show is going to be amazing. The game's going to be great. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Well, thank you for this time.
All right, thank you. Happy to do it. All right, thanks everyone.